KiwiTech is not acting as a broker, dealer, or investment advisor and is not registered with the Securities and Exchange Commission in any such capacities. At no time does KiwiTech provide investment advice, endorsement, analysis, or recommendations with respect to securities. Information contained herein should be viewed for entertainment purposes only. KiwiTech does not verify or assure that information provided by any issuer offering its securities is accurate or complete, or that the valuation of such securities is appropriate. Now, on with the show where we talk about Lynx Golf Cafe, the world's first golf cafe franchise that guarantees results by combining the margins of the coffee business, the recurring monthly revenue of memberships, the engaging fun of golf simulators, and meeting clients and team members all in one place. And you're about to hear more about how this all came to be from its founder and CEO, Tom Matzen. Tom, welcome.
Hey, Doug, super excited to be here. Thanks for making time. And I always think there's at least two people listening at any one point. So hello to both of you out there and listener.
I want to talk about your experience so far in terms of how the crowd, this is your first opportunity, or is this your first experience with equity crowdfunding?
With crowdfunding, yes. Raising equity, no, but crowdfunding equity, absolutely.
Let's talk a bit about, though, because yes, I'm always curious about someone who has a long time, has a lot of experience raising money, but is new to equity crowdfunding, how the experience is different and how it's the same. What are you learning from this new experience for you?
Yeah, awesome question. I was quite surprised to find out it existed, which was stunning for me because I've been helping entrepreneurs raise capital. I've been raising capital myself for almost probably 30 years now and have raised millions and millions of dollars, 10, 15, 25,000 at a time, not using crowdfunding. Sometimes hard money lending structures, sometimes actual equity, sometimes, as I learned more, preferreds that converted, all kinds of structures over the years, but mostly pretty straightforward, pretty simple things. And when someone I know and trust suggested I check into the crowdfunding, I was like, wow. And then I learned the Jobs Act. I went, oh yeah, right. The whole change with that structure. So I was intrigued by the model. And in our case, we're combining three different industries, as you know, right? Coffee, golf, and the small business side of the masterminding thing. Yeah. And the coffee I got tons of experience in. The golf, there's a real setup model that we're using to scale, and the masterminds, but combining them, it's a complex story. And what we found is that if someone is into golf, they get it right away. They get the constraints of 5 hours for a round of golf. $20,000 minimum to join any decent golf and country club, thousands of dollars a month minimum food and beverage purchases.
It's a huge commitment.
Travel times, all this other stuff. Anyone that's been into golf and then had a kid and had to stop being into golf, all of those constraints. If you come from golf, right? You're Michigan based, right?
Yes. So
golf and snowshoeing are the two sports of Michigan. So
often simultaneously, for sure.
Winter golf, I like that. Snow golf. So you're afflicted with a golf disease. I like it. So people who get golf right away get the unique elements we're doing with the simulators and the indoor and all those components. But what we found is people who don't really don't. And so what intrigued me about crowdfunding is that we could focus on a simple part of the message really quickly and focus on that audience. And those are the people that have responded so far. So I love that. I like the simplicity of the structure. I like the fact that it's convertible, and as we grow, they win. I like that for sure. And I also like the fact that we get to know who they are. Because not all the time that's the case, right? If someone buys your book on Amazon, you don't know who they are. Right. And a big part of your marketing is to get them to come back and say who you are. So I like that because really, I think business at its highest level is building tribes, right? If you think about it.
The engagement and the community level thing, that's the future of networking online anyway. But I think in general, as social media and broadcasting and communicating in general searches for its new level of usefulness, because I think the future of any social media is it has to be particularly useful. That's how your message rings out as well, because there's just so much garbage out there. You really got to sift super hard to get to the heat of the meat.
Especially for entrepreneurs, right? Entrepreneurs, yeah. I work with thousands of entrepreneurs over the years, and I see them abuse social media all the time rather than think of, okay, what's the purpose? Like, what's my strategy here? Not the tactics of the post of the day, but what's my strategy? What am I trying to accomplish? Most entrepreneurs do it backwards, right? They just start with the tactics. I'm going to be on a show. I'm going to run my own podcast. I'm going to do this rather than, okay, what's the strategy? what's your game? Why are you doing it? So yeah, I think we're on the same page there for sure.
So, and speaking as a finance veteran, since you're a finance veteran, I'm wondering, the Jobs Act is 11 years old now. The economic climate was a bit different back then. Do you think, as far as timing goes, how well do you think this current point in financial history is as a backdrop to evaluate how effective crowdfunding can be, given the overall volatility and
Yeah, I think like most startup investing, most people who invest in early stage or early stage startups are going to lose what they put in. And my concern is that if they're not educated that way and they're not approaching it that way, and they allocate too much of their assets to it, or they randomly do it because they haven't done any homework and they go, "Oh, that sounds good. Yeah, a three-dimensional TV that folds up and I can roll it. Great idea." Right? Like, who wouldn't like a rollable TV? We'd all like a rollable TV, but have you seen what they cost to actually make a good one? Right? So I think there's a real risk reward that's going on in that space. It's like the trend of a couple of years ago now for SPACs, right? Everyone was doing the instant public, go instantly public.
Yeah.
And so much so that they had to spend their money or they would lose it, which meant they would do deals that no normal human would do. Right.
Well,
and
it
so
just mirrored the housing crisis, didn't it? It was like, we're running out of assets here. So we got so much money chasing something to invest in that after a while, we either have to extend to subprime loans or we have to, de-SPAC with companies that don't have a chance.
Yeah, that have no profit model. That's the thing that drives me crazy as an entrepreneur that's built a lot of small businesses. 90, this is my 93rd business, Doug. So for me, I've made and lost a lot along the way. And I'm always rewarded if it's profitable and punished if it's not. You see some of these other models where people are rewarded for no profitability, like exponentially so. And, God bless them. I mean, good for them to pull that off, but it never makes sense to me as an entrepreneur. It's got to make sense. It's got to be an economic return, right? And that's part of the reason why I was attracted to coffee bars early on, because done right, they're very lucrative.
We're going to talk about something that has a really unique message, the fact that success as a franchisee is guaranteed, as in if you're not profitable within your first year, don't call them, what are we not supposed to call them?
We don't call them royalties. We think that's the old model, master, servant, slave thing. We call them system rental fees.
Yes. So your system rental fees will be waived until you start to turn the corner and you're in the black. And that's a profound claim, I think, from the CEO. And I think that's one of the main reasons investors are looking at this business, because if the franchisees thrive, the business thrives and the investors thrive, especially as we work toward a very specific plan for exit in the next, however long, what did you say your timeline
3 to
is?
5 years, 3 to 5
3 to 5 years. So you may also get your return has a bit of a pretty secure timeline as well in that regard. Now, when I first met you, Tom, we talked a lot about your background, having created more coffee bars on planet Earth than basically anyone.
Independent coffee bars, yeah. Independent.
Yeah, and it's a thriving business. I mean, I forget when this was. This must have been like in the early 90s when I was in San Francisco and I walked into a Starbucks, which was then the indie coffee roaster, because it was a new concept. There were bags of coffee beans on the floor. I lived in New York. I'd never seen anything like that. And I thought, this is a great idea. Sure enough, now I live in Ann Arbor now, and there's got to be a couple dozen different coffee franchisees in my little 100,000 population town alone. So when did you first get involved in coffee? How did it attract you to the business? And how did you learn what you know now?
Yeah, I stumbled into it. We'd opened up a food business in a high-end food court, if there is such a thing, upscale food court in downtown Vancouver. We were doing a high-end version of a cheesesteak, a Philly cheesesteak. This was going to be our big vision, Doug. We were going to do high-end premium, sirloin tip, Black Forest ham, shredded real cheese. So not only did we have high food costs
in North America, can I get from Philadelphia?
Well, and on top of that, we said, let's do it with high food cost and high labor cost, because that's the perfect combination for fast food, don't you know?
This is the experimental stage of your knowledge base. Yes, for sure.
Totally. And a spot in the food court opened up, and the owner said, the landlord said, I want to put a coffee bar in there. Do you want it? And I said, to my buddy, my business partner and buddy. I said, yeah, sure, we'll do that. And then he walked away, and I said, my partner, so what coffee bar?
Yeah,
I
coffee.
literally didn't know what a coffee bar was. This was in the 1980s, late
Yeah.
80s. And we then reached out to some friends, and one guy owned a coffee bar, a muffin shop, really, and said, hey, you want to come in this coffee bar? And he said, yeah. And told him where. He's, oh, yeah, let's do it. So we built this thing, got it up and running, and he was running it. And we were losing money every month, but not a lot, like just a little bit. And for those of you in the restaurant business or have ever been in one, break even is a mythical point. It doesn't exist in the restaurant business, but we were breaking even effectively in this coffee bar. And that intrigued me because in the restaurant business, you either lost a lot of money or you made a lot of money. You rarely broke even. And so, but he was doing a bunch of things that didn't make sense. Like he would sell day old muffins and call them fresh. And he would do other things that just didn't make sense. And it never really took off. So we persuaded him to step aside. I took over, brought my girlfriend in, and we turned the place around. And in 45 days, we were making $7,500 a month profit out of this tiny coffee bar in downtown Vancouver. You could never do that in the restaurant business that quickly.
Right.
And
Well,
I went,
is it beverages then? Because it's common knowledge that, most of the margin in the restaurant business comes from, kind of get you a beverage to start while you,
most people think that's where the profit is, but here's the crazy part. The food cost averaged out 32% in coffee bars.
okay.
And by the way, 30 to 35 is the normal for a restaurant. So it's not food cost. The coffee itself is cheap, but the milk's expensive, the sugar's expensive, the stir sticks, the double cups, the protective sleeve, the special lid, all this other stuff. You end up being 30 to 35%. What it is labor productivity. What they call in the industry sales per man hour. Labor productivity is high. Think about it. You brew a pot of coffee, you press a button and it brews. Right? So the revenue per hour worked was the key to why these things made really good money. Done right. In fact, I built 187 of them. We did a lot of them. We averaged 52% cash on cash return, which, compared to a fast food place is crazy.
Right. So the baristas, it's more plug and play. And my son did some time working for a coffee franchise, and he did some long pulls, and he did have acquired some expertise at that. But most of the time it is, as you say, it's just follow a procedure, push the button. And is that what most of your coffee bars are built on? That kind of?
Yeah, we also added in-store roasting. About half the ones I built had a roaster in store. So we added in another competitive advantage by roasting fresh, and we bought only organic beans, and that was great for business as well. But the labor productivity was a crucial part. And there's another way to think of it, right? If you're selling muffins in a coffee bar, you don't bake one muffin.
Yeah.
You bake a tray of muffins or a big tray of muffins or several big trays of muffins all at the same time, throw it in the oven. And then 20 minutes later or so, it's done, put them on a cooling rack and away you go. So there is this built-in advantage that you see in certain food businesses like pizza businesses, but you don't see in a normal fast food business. And so that was part of it. It was also just frankly, a lot of fun. We attracted a better caliber staff. They were friendlier. They were more outgoing. It was sort of like a fun food place to work. And it was a easy retail place to work. So we recruited the best retail people. We paid 20% more than the going rate, which was a smart strategy on our part. So we got the best retail people. We got the best restaurant people working for us, which meant they showed up on time. They did what they said they're going to do. They treated the customers with respect and dignity. They didn't need training on customer service. That was just how they were wired. And that, of course, is a crucial part of creating what we call today raving fans, right? You don't want just happy customers. You want raving fans in your business if you're going to thrive today. And that's a big part of the secret back then on the coffee side.
Yeah. Happy repeat customers.
Totally. And people that refer others and tell others about it and are more loyal when you mess up, and a bunch of other factors come into play.
So I'm curious as well about just in general, so you made your own pastries. You didn't partner with any local bakeries or anything. I mean,
you'd lose all the margin. If you bought other people's products, you'd lose most of the margin, not all the margin. And so between waste and margin, you were making about 30 points gross. If you made it yourself, you're making about 65.
So as part of your plan with Link's Golf Cafe, when you offer food that accompanies the coffee, that all that is made in-house as well?
Yeah, everything that's scalable and can be done by the local staff will be done local because it makes for a better product. I'll give you an example of something that won't be. We're going to do gourmet sausages or links, thus the name Links Golf
Oh,
Cafe.
get over yourself, really?
Yeah, a little play on the words. I thought you as a golfer, you'd appreciate that. And so
I
the
mean,
link sausages, they're going to be sous vide. They're going to be done on site. The gourmet buns that go with it, the buns and the sausages, we're not making from scratch. We're getting them somewhere else.
right.
But we will heat and serve them quickly and do it in scale on site.
Okay. Yeah, because I think that's when you normally associate these indoor golf facilities, you associate them with more of a bar setting, but this is more of a coffee bar. So when you think about the difference between offering alcoholic beverages and having a coffee bar, what are the salient differences between the two, and what
Yeah,
attracts
great question. And I will tell you, all of our franchise prospects to date want to bring alcohol in. And we're not opposed to it. I like a beer on the turn myself on a golf course, nice sunny day, anytime. However, when I go through the math with them and the economics and the risk, then all of a sudden they go, wait a second, I never thought about that. There's a major competitor in the non-traditional golf space called Top Golf. Many of your listeners will have been to a Top Golf somewhere. About a year and a half ago, pretty server was getting $100 tips from an NFL player, kept serving the guy. He drives home in his high-end sports car, kills a single mom and a child.
Oh, dear God.
$32 million judgment against Top Golf. I don't know what the NFL player had to pay, but the Top Golf, fortunately owned by Callaway with really deep pockets, $32 million. Because what? Because a pretty girl took $100 tips from an NFL player. Well, you know what? I'm never going to stop those three things if they're in my facility. I'm never going to stop that.
Over service. Yeah, that's a definite problem, and it's something that.
So that's part of the challenge with alcohol is you get the legal risks and the legal options. The other part is, frankly, it's better margins serving gourmet coffee than it is serving alcohol. Our coffee bars that tried alcohol weren't as profitable. Those that ignored alcohol and stuck with the gourmet coffee beverages, more profitable. You look at Starbucks P&L and you get an idea of just how profitable a $7 flavored mocha chapa frappa latte is.
Yeah.
Right. And other than milk, it's all margin, baby. Milk in the cup, there's real costs, but other than those two, it's all margin. And the other part about alcohol is your staff steal from you, not your customers. And so it's called shrink in the industry. They have a nice fancy term for it, right? So you have to put systems in place to catch your staff stealing. Well, what type of supportive environment is that? It's terrible. If you worked in the bar business, you know, it's like you have to have systems to catch your staff from stealing, and then you have to fire them when they steal from you, and you have to punish them, and you have this whole loop and turnover and churn and all kinds of other stuff. I don't want to start a business to have more stress in my life. I want to have less stress.
See, I've seen Roadhouse. I'm right there with you. And as a franchise owner, do you want your clientele caffeinated or inebriated? You know, I think it's just for the sake of, you don't need to bring Patrick Swayze in to kick ass if they're all just hopped up on coffee as opposed to.
Plus, there's a whole bunch of potential golfers. The industry calls them non-traditional golfers, but there's a whole bunch that aren't even yet a golfer. Right. The industry calls them latent. I don't know why.
Top Golf is a party with, oh, by the way, there's golf clubs, you know?
Yeah. And if you're talking the youth don't want to spend 20 grand to join a golf and country club. They don't want to spend 5 hours playing around a golf. But the idea of I could come in half an hour, play Pebble Beach, play 3 holes of Pebble Beach, and then save my round in the computer, that's intriguing for them. Well, so that becomes part of the attraction.
I think so, yeah, especially since you can come to Links Golf Cafe and actually work on your golf game. As in a way that I think the top, I'm sure there are plenty of golf enthusiasts at Top Golf and everyone else, but there's so much more of that business that, as I say, it's just party that, I mean, you could have hockey sticks there. It doesn't even matter. Yeah. But with Top Golf, there's a greater, since it's a coffee bar, I mean, you're there to network, you're there to meet people, you're there to engage in big groups, bring the office there, but you can also spend some time, you're clear-headed the whole time, and you can actually work on your game in a way.
In fact, we have memberships that are non-peak memberships, so people can come in when it's not busy, when there's no crowds around, and literally put it in driving range mode and work on it. The pro golfers today use these high-end simulators to train on. That's what they train on. I mean,
The ones you use at links.
yeah, the same ones. In fact, if you go our main site, linksgolfcafe.com, see how I put the plug in there?
That website is the most informative I've ever seen. If there's
Oh,
anything
thank
you'd
you.
ever want to know about Links Golf Cafe in terms of playing there, investing in there, it's all there and it's exhaustive. So
Well,
yes,
and I appreciate you saying that. We invested our first early crowdfunding funds in doing that. We had this vision of we want even better disclosure, even better disclaimer information, even more detailed look. And so that just went live probably about a week before you saw it. So thank you for that. You're the first direct feedback from someone outside to tell us.
I remember I wrote the site update indicating.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah.
So I felt like an insider, and it was money well spent. I do think anybody, having that level of information at your fingertips, that speaks to that underscores the commitment you have to your franchisees, which you're trying to get across. You're saying, my job is to make sure you're happy, because when the franchisees are happy, the entire structure is happy and it's bound to grow.
Well, and that's the crazy thing about franchising. I'm an anti-franchise guy. I've been around the space for over 20 years. I've seen a lot of abuse in this space from the franchisors when they're cheating their customers, the individual franchise owners.
Oh yeah,
and it never made sense to me. Yeah. Never made sense. Like, why would you cheat your own customers? It doesn't make sense. It should be the opposite. You should be there to help
the Last
them.
Week Tonight episode about Subway?
No, but last time I checked the franchise disclosure, they had $9 billion in outstanding lawsuits.
It's amazing. They think nothing about putting another franchise 6 feet from yours, and
Well, your protected territory in their case is your site.
Yes.
And so most of those lawsuits of the $9 billion aren't going to go anywhere because they're about territory infringement. And they bought an agreement that said your protected territory is the 4 walls of your location. So you signed the damn thing. You said yes to that crazy rule. Ours is a 250,000 population protected territory. Why? Because I don't want to be competing with another Links Golf Cafe unless it's my own. Yeah. Like I want to expand when I'm ready to expand, not because I open up a location and then a bunch of people want to open up near me, which happens all the time in franchising. All the time.
All right, we're getting ahead of ourselves a bit, but I think that's an interesting insight into your background as an anti-franchise franchisor, if I got the wording right. But
you got it. You nailed it.
We're talking about your initial foray into coffee bars in Vancouver. How did that grow to 187?
I did them all over the world. I did them
them stencil pretty quick, and it replicated rather easily. Or
these were all independents. These were almost all of them were independents. So they were that the business I was in was helping people start, run, and grow coffee bars, and my niche was focusing on in-store roasting. That was kind of the thing that put me on the map. So you could walk in, order a pound of Guatemala Antigua medium roast, and they would roast it on the spot. 8 minutes later, you take it home hot out of the oven. Like, it was really cool. Yeah. No one was doing that at the time. Now there's thousands of what they call roaster retailers, but at the time, nobody was doing that. And partly because the technology they were using were these big, old, very expensive, big batch roasters. And I was at a trade show in Boston. I'll remember this for all my life. And I walked around the corner and there was this box, stainless steel box, and a little sign about so-and-so micro roaster, and nobody was at his booth. Nobody. And I walked up and I said, tell me what you got. And he told me, I went, that's fantastic. He said, yeah, I wish other people felt that way. We're having a terrible show. I said, well, I'm just going to make your day. And I cut the rights
out in the booth. You might have more.
I cut the rights to Canada from him for a performance contract. It took 2 weeks to sign the deal. And I started putting these in all over the place. Turns out, there's now something called a computer chip that makes it easy to roast. All these old roasters, it took years to learn the craft. It was like making beer. You had to be trained in years and all the skill. The new ones, the ones we got from him, you look at the bean, you look at the timer, you press the buttons, you say go, it beeps, you open it up, cool them off, and it's done.
And it'll all be AI in 6 months anyway.
Yeah, exactly. The AI will measure the only thing that varied was the water density in the air. You'll appreciate this. Humid, sticky days in Ann Arbor, it would take longer to roast the beans than a dry day in Ann Arbor.
Just
And
like
so
it takes
that was it.
longer to
That was
bake
the
a bread.
only skill our staff had to know. Is it humid or is it not?
But that feeds into my next question, because during that time you built some semblance of a template in
Yes.
terms of, and you've perfected it over the years and written books about it, which we'll talk about. But how universal is that template when you expand to the vast geography that you have? What sorts of things can people rely on to be universal, and what sorts of things does a franchisee need to learn specific to the population density, the weather, other aspects of that? How tweakable is this template you built?
I think that gets to our whole strategy of launch. We had a choice. I was approached by a good business friend of mine from London, England, who wanted to do a thing with me. That I wanted a thing like real, like bricks and mortar real. And I went, well, what do you mean? He says, yeah, this online stuff is great, but I want to do bricks and mortar. And he's a former CPA, as we call him over here, chartered accountant. And he wanted something that was tangible. And when I dug into what he meant by that, he meant something that had real equity that could build as we scaled. And I went, I agree with that vision. So we brainstormed different ideas. I brought this one up as one of the possibilities, and he went, that's it right there. Let's go. So we had enough money to either build a site for about $1 million or build the systems of support and training and marketing for about $1 million, not both. And the mistake most startups make in franchising is they build the prototype. Why? Because it's easier to sell. When you've got one you can touch and feel, it's easier to sell. Plus, the market goes from 10% of potential people to about 80% of potential people. There's still 20% of late adopters that'll never buy anything early, but you went from 10% to 80%. So the normal approach when you want to franchise an early stage business is you open up one and sell against it. I insisted to Simon, I said, if we're going to do this, we're going to do it the other way. And it'll be harder for us to get off the ground, but it'll be better because then we'll have the systems of support. Back to your question, right? Our job as a franchisor, as I see it, is to ensure our owners are profitable. Period. Full stop. Well, we say more life and more profit, because I believe the purpose of a business is more life and more profit, not just more profit. And what I mean by that is if you have to work 60, 70, 80 hours a week and your family doesn't recognize you and your kids go, who's daddy again? I don't, which is daddy? Show me the pictures. That's not more life, right? So we want to have both. We want to have more life and more profit. So our model is designed to be run by a general manager, 3 assistant managers, not the franchise owner. And in order for that to work, our systems have to be super scalable and super duplicatable. So the short answer is all of our systems are set up now to do that. And we fully expect that as we roll out the locations, we're going to optimize and optimize and optimize, because that's another one of our systems, right? If you think of McDonald's in the early days, not a lot of people know this, but the Big Mac, the filet of fish, the Egg McMuffin, all invented by individual franchisees.
And they all came out of the same bucket of stuff.
Except for discussion. Actually, some guy in Michigan that invented the filet of fish.
Oh, yeah?
He was in a Catholic neighborhood. He couldn't sell burgers on Friday.
There you go. For sure.
And so he said to Ray Kroc, I need a fish sandwich. I need something besides burgers. I got no sales on Friday.
But how does that explain the McRib?
Ray said, no, you can't. We're burgers. And so he did it on his own. Not that I advocate that.
Right.
But it worked so well that Ray went, I surrender. Let's do it. And
where did the McRib go? The McRib came from somewhere too, like yoga mats or something.
Yeah, but the sauce is so good.
Oh, dear God. Well, and it's funny to establish that you are Canadian, and you did refer to London, England, because there is a London, Ontario, which is just across the way from where I am here in Michigan. And speaking of tweaking the template, because you also have written a book. And so how many coffee bars had you opened before you figured you had expertise that it was time to release in book form in terms of like the soup to nuts about how to start and run a coffee bar?
As it turned out, all of them.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. We had built, well, not quite all of them, but close. We had built a small chain that we were growing rapidly and franchising. When I say we, it was myself and my girlfriend advising a couple, and the couple was running the business, and that was our business deal. We had a piece of their piece, if you will. And we were growing like this. In fact, for a year and a half, we were the fastest, for 23 months, we were the fastest growing coffee franchise in the world as a startup. In other words, our total locations opened outgrew all the big chains, Second Cup, all the big chains in franchising, Gloria Jeans at the time. But they started to do some things to cheat our customers. And we're like, you can't do that. And not only that, in our franchise agreements, it was a violation. Most franchise agreements, you can cheat your customers and there's nothing you can do. Nothing the customer can do. Nothing the franchisee can do. In our agreement, we'd actually put in clauses to give teeth to our franchisees if we ever did this. And so we saw this happening.
That's the curse of late stage capitalism, right? A margin is not good enough. The margin's got to get bigger.
And it's at first it was very gentle. You know, we'd order our beans from a warehouse in Oakland. They would charge for the long distance call as the cost of the beans, right? Which is kind of the cost of the beans. You had to make a call. You had to, okay. And then they started to charge for storage of the beans in their garage. Wait a second. And it spread from there. And I could see, and so did my girlfriend at the time, that the whole business was going to collapse. And so we knew it was going to collapse. We knew they were cheating our customers. We couldn't do anything about it. And so I wrote the book as my way to get even. It was a $20,000 franchise manual that I published as a book and added some elements to it. And we sold 178,000 copies all over the world. And people read it and go, man, this is a good book on coffee bars. I'm like, well, yeah, it cost $20,000 for a bunch of people to buy that book.
So how did that book, because the process of writing a book, there's a way of, it just forces you to kind of codify your thoughts a bit, organize them, sift through them. How did writing that book in some way sharpen your overall appreciation of the business to the point where now coffee features so prominently in the revenue plan for Lynx Golf Cafe?
Well, they're two separate parts. So I'll answer both quickly. The first one
I do that a lot. I ask several questions at once.
You're hybrid.
You in the deep end of the pool and see
hybrid. I like it. So the first part was the book writing process. Fortunately for me, we had the franchise operations manual we'd created for the business, which we own the intellectual property rights to as part of our deal. So it was a matter of taking that and then adding in the publisher's formats for other it was start and run series. And so they had a format for start and run, insert, answer. And they came to us and said, take this format, take your stuff. And boy, we'll take your book all over the world. And so we were fortunate. Someone showed us the blueprint. We just followed it. Right. Mm-hmm. So we added in all the pieces that were missing, and they actually added into their template a bunch of things that were in our format for other books afterwards, because they're like, oh yeah, we need something about that. That's a good one. So that was actually a separate thing. When it came to this business, we backward shaped it from the assumption of the collapse caused by COVID happening again.
Okay.
And so here's what I mean by that. I call it Achilles heel. When you're starting a business, where are you weak? Where are you vulnerable? You should know before you launch the business, and then you should have a plan to counter those vulnerabilities. One of our vulnerabilities, if we build $1 million facility in a major regional shopping center, and the powers that be say you got to close the shopping center, we didn't want our guys to go out of business. Right? We didn't want them to crash and burn. So we went, what can we do to make sure they don't crash and burn? And then we backward shaped the revenue streams and the strategy from that. And part of that became the coffee business, because that's a business that literally could operate out of a closed mall and deliver to homes, the food, the links, and the coffee side of things like that. So we backward shaped it. To me, that's one of the things I've helped, over 10,000 people start a business or expand a business in the last 39 years, all kinds of areas. And we always, after someone's clear on what the game they want to play, the next step I recommend is you do that Achilles heel analysis and say, okay, where are you vulnerable? Not from a point of view of like an MBA does, oh, you're going to lose, it's not going to work. No, like, where are you vulnerable? And what can you do to put safety systems in place so that you can minimize, not eliminate, because that's a lie, but minimize the risk. Does that make sense?
It does. In fact, and that's why I thought the next place to go would be to put on the franchisee's hat for a second and say, because we've already established that you've got very useful clauses in the actual agreement that protect against abuse from a franchisor, which is really important. And any franchisee is welcome to peruse those and have them reviewed by whomever to confirm that. But then we get down to the financial structure. And one of the things you have stressed throughout was coffee has a great margin. I think you 52%, was it?
52% was our average cash on cash return per year.
Right. And so if you combine that with the business of the golf machines and the business of the networking aspect in terms of the overall revenue projection and the overall margin projection, how do they all work in tandem? And how can you be so bold as to guarantee that they're all going to be profitable once a franchisee passes through your rigorous evaluation program?
Yeah, great question. And so I'll tell you how it came up because it answers that beautifully. I was doing a early stage, we call it a stage 2 call with a franchise prospect. And I was going through our strategy of recurring revenue with the memberships on the business side, not the golf side, but the business side. And he goes, well, that would allow you to open profitably, wouldn't it? And I said, yeah, with the right follow through and the right strategy, you would pre-sell the memberships and do that. I go, just like fitness centers do every day. Like, that's not a new idea for us. The fitness center industry does this all the time. If you ever see a new gym, they have a trailer on the parking lot, they're selling memberships, and then they open. What you may not know is they don't open the doors until they've sold enough memberships to pay for all the costs. Like, it's a strategy. They'll be taped up, signs on the wall, like all paper, all up, and it's done inside. And they'll just keep going until they're there. Well, we thought that made a lot of sense. Like, that's a good strategy. Let's do that. And so when I was describing it to that person, he said, well, if you're so confident of that, why don't you guarantee results? Now, he wasn't a franchise person because in the franchise world, guarantee results and attorneys, they all freak out at the concept of that. Oh, you can't guarantee. Oh my God, no. Well, I actually said, because I teach guaranteed results in my online training world, and we were developing programs for our franchise owners to do guaranteed results in their online training world. And so I heard him and I went, that's a great idea. Let me talk to our board and get back to you. And then I called up our board of advisors, got them together. One of those guys ran a very successful fitness franchise. In fact, he was franchisee of the year in a very large chain several times. And I said to him, Clinton, what should we do? How can we guarantee results? He goes, I don't know. Let's play with it. And so we played with it and we got all the team together. We brainstormed. And what we realized is we couldn't guarantee results in the normal way that you would, like at Sears, guarantee a satisfaction or your money back, because people are going to spend $1 million bill. They're going to sign a 10-year contract with the mall. Like, you can't do that. It's just not practical. Plus, frankly, we didn't have $50 million sitting beside to refund people's money. So it wasn't honorable to even offer that. But we could guarantee positive cash flow day one. And so when we looked at it and then talked to the attorneys on how to write it up, we settled on 12 months after you open. The attorneys are like, well, let's build a bit of a buffer in. I said, that makes sense. I like that. Let's be conservative. So our guarantee is within 12 months of opening. If you're not cash flow positive, we pay your system rental fees until you are. And that's our only profit we make supporting them.
Right.
So 100% of our potential profit we give it up until they are. And the reason for that is simple. We know we can get you there. And we think we can get you there day one, but this builds a nice buffer in, right? Maybe the market conditions are a little different. Maybe something's happening. We can still make it happen. And we're super proud of it. Near as I know, of the 4,200 franchises that are actively marketing in the world, 3 have guarantees, and the other 2 are home-based businesses. Nothing like us at all.
Well, and speaking of you, and I imagine you can also offer that guarantee because of the volume you have in terms of there'll be some franchisees who'll be doing great, and you have that opportunity to kind of offer that cushion to those who might be a little slower out of the box. Is that fair to say?
Totally. Yeah, absolutely.
So, and you mentioned malls as well, because I know you want to talk about situating these in malls in terms of part of the business plan is to recognize the availability of real estate in these malls, which are struggling. Some of them are, and to have something that's cash positive and also a nexus of gathering people. So maybe they'll wander out into the mall and give other franchises and other storefronts a little foot traffic. How does the Links Golf Cafe plan meld with the real estate aspect?
Yeah, it's a big part of our strategy. I used to work for the largest landlord in Canada, Cambridge Ivanhoe, they're called today. And back then, half a 1% vacancy for major regional malls was normal for years. Then along came this little startup called Amazon. We're selling books, right? You and I are old enough to remember when they just sold books,
Oh
right?
yeah.
And then somebody went, hey, if you're good at distributing books, you might as well distribute everything else in the world. I don't know who thought that up, but what a crazy idea. You would fail your business study in school with that idea, but they
Right.
pulled it off. They pulled it off. And so that started to affect the shopping centers dramatically. And then comes COVID, where literally they were shut down, mandated by law to be shut down most places. And today, major regional shopping centers, the good ones, I'm not talking the divey ones in your neighborhood, I'm talking about the good ones, have
Yep.
12% vacancy on average, according to the International Shopping Center Associations. But behind the scenes, I know it's 20 to 30%. There's a whole bunch of tenants that are there just on a percentage rent basis to fill the space.
Oh
You
yeah,
see,
I would think it's just just as to show that it's to at least indicate that things are a little
there's,
better than they
yeah.
are.
And yet there are still 50,000 people a week going through these malls. There's still 2,000 employees on average in these malls. And so our strategy was if you think about a shopping center in North America now, what's a shopping center? It's a gathering place.
Yeah.
It's our community town center of old, right? People come and gather. And so we knew if we did this right, we could find great locations. We could find them in a dead wing near an exit, which nobody wants to be. They want to be in the middle. They want to be by the food court. They want to be where the crowds are. We want to be in the dead wing. So our members who do have their own clubs can bring them in easy and not kill anyone walking in with the bags, right? We want it nice and easy, in and out, in and out, in and out. But we want to take advantage of those 50,000 people a week coming through. And most importantly, the 2,000 employees. Because the 2,000 employees that work in a mall, they're the ones that are the channel to guerrilla marketing. They're the ones that know where to send people. Oh, you want a really good cup of coffee? Oh yeah, go to Link's Golf Cafe. Forget the crowds in the food court. Go up in this other wing over there by Macy's in the corner. By the way, here's a card. Your first one's on us. Really? Yeah, thank you so much. Well, what is that? Well, that's a rack card. You know these little racks? That's a rack card. We'll have cards in those stores for them to treat the person to a free gourmet coffee on them. You notice I said on them. It's not on them, it's on us, but they're giving it out. So we'll give them credit all day long. That ability to cross-pollinate for pennies on the dollar will give us a big competitive advantage. And that's part of the reason why we think those locations are a superior choice.
Yeah, and I think that also implies dedicated parking. You wanted
free dedicated parking.
Which is important because people are going to arrive. They may bring their own clubs, and I mean, I imagine.
And they don't have to because we got great clubs in store, but you're right. Some of the golf nuts will definitely bring their own.
Right. And parking at the mall can be a hassle. You want to be able to park near your event if you have something of that magnitude.
Exactly.
So that was a big part of the business plan that I remember writing about and thinking this also seemed the synthesis there was also pretty strong given the state of current malls and how mall landlords would welcome the arrival. And I imagine you could get some wiggle room in terms of leases for this.
Well, we've already had conversations with two of the biggest landlords in the US. Not only is there free rent and reduced operating costs, but there's something called TIs, my favorite initials, except for TFN. TFN's my favorite, till further notice. That's payments that keep on coming in until you tell stop, right? That's membership revenue. Love that. But TIs are my second favorite. TIs are tenant improvement allowances. This is where the landlord gives you money to build your store.
Right.
And it's normal in the shopping center business to do this. In good times, it's normal. In bad times, the checks get bigger and bigger. Why? Because they want you in. And in this case, we are, from a landlord's perspective, we're a place for the guys to hang out while their wives go shop. That's gold. To any landlord of a shopping center, that's gold. Because 72%, last time I checked, 72% of all purchase decisions in a mall are made by women.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a sexist thing. It's a math thing.
Well, yeah, we're just looking at data here. That's,
Yeah, and if anyone that's happily married understands that dynamic, And there are higher end malls and lower end malls, and the dynamics are the same pretty much across the board. In fact, I haven't checked. I bet you it's the same dynamic at Walmart. I bet you it's the same dynamic at Walmart, 72%. So that's an important factor because most of these fancy regional malls have areas in the common area to get the guys to sit and relax. Now, beautiful leather chairs, they got a TV, and it's like, take your time, honey, I'm going to watch the game, right? Well, we could have that same experience, except now, take your time, honey, I'm going to golf Pebble Beach.
Yes. Do you have any data on that, on churn? Like in terms of like, what is the median time that a customer might spend in one of these, whether do they play 9 holes, 18 holes, 3 holes?
Well, and that's the thing. The data we've got on other golf simulator operations breaks it down for us. And instead of 5 hours for a round of golf on a grass golf course, people average 45 minutes.
Okay.
Which is fantastic because it means more people can go through the facility, means we can sell more memberships, optimizing that yield, the monthly recurring revenue, that TFN thing I was telling you about earlier, right? Yeah. More of that. And it allows us to schedule it because unlike the golf course, people here will schedule the time. So if you want 30 minutes, you book 30 minutes. You want an hour, you book an hour. You want 2 hours, you book 2 hours. And if you're not done, you save your round in the cloud. Try that at an Ann Arbor golf course, a golf and country club, right? What I just really think to save the round. I'm on the 11th hole. I need to go.
Well, you can run these like a karaoke room. You can kind of you go until you're done, and you have other clientele. Any structure you have in order to that's predictive to the cash flow is going to be really important down.
And in fact, a big part of the seating is elevated behind the golf area so that non-golfers can sit and watch and laugh at people hitting the ball because the ball still travels. It's still a normal golf club, a normal golf ball. With these high-end simulators, you're hitting the physical ball. It just hits the screen and then carries off down the fairway or into the mountains or into the ocean, except the actual ball drops down.
Right.
On the screen, you're in the ocean, you got to drop and take a stroke, but it's so much more fun for a bad golfer because you're not losing the ball.
Right. And as part of another part of the revenue stream, I'm curious about partnerships because one of the biggest things associated with golf is the pro shop. If to the extent any plans are in place now or could be in the future, how do you see that opening up as a potential?
Yeah, there's 2 parts to that. No one's ever asked about this. I like this one. 2 parts. There's the strategic partnership. So for example, we will have a designated golf club that we will buy and supply in the facility, and we'll cut that deal closer to purchase time because that's the best deal you get. And there'll be a designated golf club for that. And because we'll have a great high-end set, and we'll have one that are stiff shafts for the pros, and we'll have softer, more flexible staff for the newer golfers or higher handicap golfers. We'll have both right-handed and left-handed there. Those sorts of strategic partnerships, that's our job to negotiate to help our customers.
Right.
The other side, on the retail side, we don't have a lot of retail, but what we want are retail that can be customized for the golfer. So whether it's golf gifts or golf shirts or golf balls where you print the name on it, we'll do that on site. And we'll have the ability to take some of these things and also partner with vendors who don't really have an outlet. I'll give you an example. Have you been to any of these big golf superstores lately, Doug?
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Yeah. Massive stores, like 8 million things to choose from. In every one of them,
golf sets and displayed in parallel on walls, for sure.
Every one of them has what I'm about to describe and hardly sells any of it. We are going to have just it. And that's footwear, custom FootJoy golf shoes. Next time you're in, look around, you will see somewhere tucked in the corner, typically, a custom FootJoy area where in the US in particular, you can go and order the colors of your favorite high school or college team or whatever you want and get your custom beautiful FootJoy shoe in the colors you want, in the size you want. It's not sitting there. They fit you. They order it in the cloud and it shows up at your door when it's ready. Or in their case, they might make you come to the store and get it, right? Doesn't matter. Well, they're beautiful. They've been out for 15, 20 years. FootJoy hardly sells anything that way. And I'm sitting there going, wait a second, custom fit to my foot. So each foot is the perfect size in the colors that I adore. And it's just a little bit more than normal shoes, but it's way better. Like that's a no-brainer to me. I love this idea. And I know it's going to sell because of men and their egos.
Well, but not everyone's feet are the same size, as we've learned too. I mean,
Almost all of our feet are different sizes left and right, and they don't let you swap that at those stores. Like, no. It doesn't work that way, Fred. And by the way, if you're wearing running shoes and you're just walking around town, doesn't matter as much. But in a high performance sport, it makes a big difference if one shoe is wobbly and the other is super snug. So we're going to do that as an example of that. And there's the beauty of that is no inventory. It's a display and some training.
Yeah.
So super great margins, because what's our product cost? Zero. There is no product.
Right.
It's a one-time rack with some fitting equipment, right?
Right.
And so there's an example for me. We didn't want to be competing with these golf superstores. 8,000 golf shirts, 4,000 sets of golf clubs. Like that's like, no way. We don't want to compete with that. But if you can come in and get a set of golf balls made up with your granddad's name on them, you take a dozen and they're printed on the spot and you take them home and give them to granddad, who happens to be a weekend hacker golfer, and for Father's Day. And you're like, hey, granddad, I got you these golf balls. And it's got Granny's name on it. Look, it's got Granny's name on it. Like whatever, right? You're going to have fun with that. And we know those select opportunities will have good margin. They'll have limited inventory and they'll have a great opportunity for turns, which is the key to making retail work. We're not trying to become a golf retailer. There's lots of people that are doing that well. It doesn't need to be us. Right.
And you can put as much of a toe in the water with that as you choose without going all in and committing.
And one other type of partnership too. Yeah. One other type of partnership, we already have several of these in place, and that is strategic partners for our members. Members.
That's what I wanted to talk about too, because one of the things you mentioned is how the decor of the place is going to reflect what it's like to kind of be in a clubhouse. And there are aspects to make these places as kind of clubby as possible, as far as, you taking your subscriber base, your members, and maybe organizing a tournament and gamifying, because we know that one of the great things about building a community involves gamifying, and you are actually playing an actual game. So that does some of the heavy lifting.
Not a big leap to gamify games, right?
But it's like you create engagement, you create competition, you create ways of inspiring people to get to a level, maybe making them want to come work on their game a bit more and maybe win the tournament next year. So when you say benefits for members, and to the extent that Links Golf Cafe is as much like Links Club Country Club, where's that overlap?
Well, and that's where my guerrilla marketing background comes in, because I have built a whole bunch of independent businesses over the years, and the way we made them work was by out competing the big names. So, I mean, for example, the very first coffee bar I opened, the one I told you about in that little food court, when I took over running that, my first flyer in Starbucks green had the headline, Buck the Trend.
Yeah.
And literally the offer was, bring your Starbucks cup to us and get a free coffee. And we literally went around the Starbucks stores in our neighborhood, because this is in Vancouver. There's lots of them, even back then, per capita, more than any city in the world. Little trivia for you. Yep. Vancouver had more than any city in the world. And even back then they had a lot. And we would stand outside their stores and give these flyers out until the managers shoot us away. Right. So what are we doing in the Links Golf Cafe? We're doing Pebble Beach Tuesdays. You play the 7th hole on Pebble Beach and you enter to win a trip to Pebble Beach Golf Links.
Oh my.
Wealth Creating Wednesdays. We're going to do 9 holes of business golf for the members to bring prospects in and build relationships. Tesla Thursdays. You're going to enter to win a 3-year lease on a Model Y Tesla. Wouldn't be done if we had a single location, but across the chain, we can do that. Freedom Fridays, win a 1-year company membership. Oh, this is fun. St. Andrews Saturdays. We're going to be busy on the weekends, but if you come in and play a special entry fee to try, you'll be entered to win a trip for you and 3 of your friends to St. Andrews. And then on the charity side, we're calling it Give Back Sundays, where Our local franchise owners will have local charities that they raise money for with closest to the pin and longest drive contest. And we'll have a dedicated, one of the simulators will be set up just for that. And people will come in and they'll throw down some money. Half the money will go to the charity, half the money will go to the facility. And we will raise money for the charity, kind of like a 50-50, except you have a role in it. You get to play, you get to hit the shot and see if you are closest to the pin and do that, or longest drive, same thing.
Well,
So that's an example of a taste of what we're building into this model so that we can maximize, because there's two elements to this. There's getting new clients in. Frankly, that's easy if you know what you're doing. But there's getting existing clients to come back more often. That's the magic, because that leads to retention. Existing clients coming back more often, they're having fun, they're enjoying it, they're not giving up their membership.
So, and I think that's an important point too, just because I know guys like to hang out in clubs. Sometimes you can just, it can be a place to go. And I mean, granted, it's one thing. You don't have to schedule. You can just go to the coffee bar, can't you? You just have to schedule.
You can pop in and grab a drink or some food impromptu.
Yeah, you can pop in, and have an.
And if the sim's available, you can golf if you're a member on the spot, or if you're a drop in paying public retail rate, you can do that too. But in busy times, that'll be booked.
Right, but the 19th hole is as much a part of the golf experience for many people, and so the opportunity just to pop in and have some food and relax and see people, that's a big part too.
Yeah,
and we talk a lot about the positive aspects of this whole model, but there's got to be something that keeps you up at night. There's got to be something that makes you wonder, what are the intangibles? What are the other existential threats, or just something that you want to be prepared for that. For if and when it happens. So what are the sorts of things that investors should be aware of, or franchisees should be aware of going forward in terms of, what could dent the model and how the model will eventually withstand it?
Yeah, great question. We've identified six big risks. And by the way, if someone hasn't identified these in advance, don't invest with them.
Yeah.
Like hello. Like that's the second thing I start with whenever I work with a client starting a new business. The first thing is, what's the game you're playing? What's the outcome? The second thing is, what are the risks? So the first category is we call it market risks, right? Is our audience large enough to protect that population? And so we did our analysis and came up with 100,000 population as large enough. So we made our territories 250,000 in size, 2.5 times bigger. On purpose. And our first 10 area developers, Doug, will get 500,000 protected territory.
Oh, wow.
Double the double, or 5 times what our research says. We may be off on the 100,000. We're not off on the 250,000. And as a result, 500,000 gives them a much bigger protected territory so that they decide when to expand and who with. They don't have to do it themselves. They can partner up with others, right? But that becomes one of the big risks and how we addressed it. All right. The next is the product risk of the franchise itself. We know we're going to attract direct competitors. Right now, everyone else is a bar concept, night, alcohol, off season. That's the focus, including X Golf, our biggest competitor in the space. Right. But at some point, probably once we get 30 or 40 open, but at some point, someone's going to go, damn, that's a good idea. I'm going to do that idea, right? There's nothing exclusive about good coffee or good hot dogs or good golf simulators or even good memberships. Now, a bunch of our things that we're developing for our business members, the training programs, the courses, the ways to grow their business is proprietary and very unique. And we sell them now for $25,000, guarantee results to clients, testing the model out for our franchisees. So that part's definitely unique and protected, but all the rest, easy to copy if you got enough money. So what are we doing? Well, we're guaranteeing buying power for our franchisees. So it's cheaper through us than on their own by a lot.
Yep.
Right now, about $160,000. Hard cost, cheaper than if you did it on your own. Well, that's a big advantage. We're charging $45,000 for our franchise fee. So you subtract the two, that's $125 in your pocket that you don't have to spend, right? That's a big competitive advantage. Second, I talked about the Teslas and the St. Andrews and all that. Well, in the beginning, that's going to be over a period of months, the contest.
Right.
And then as we grow, it's going to be a period of a few weeks. And once we get enough scale, it's going to be that Tuesday.
Right.
Not like some Tuesday. It'll be this Tuesday. You're winning Pebble Beach. Come in this Tuesday. You want another shot? You weren't very close on that one, Doug. You want another $20? Come on, let's go. All right. Yeah. We're giving it away in a couple hours. Come on. Okay. Right. So we're building that in. And there's a few other things that we haven't announced publicly that we built in to take advantage of the system-wide network of entrepreneurs and the system-wide network of members as we grow. That frankly, if someone takes a look at, and if they go through our franchise awarding process and they get to the last step before putting down money, we share all of this with them, our poll plans, they're going to go, holy cow. And we love it. And it's part of what we designed from the beginning. So that's the second risk. The third risk I would call corporate risks, right? We're not a big chain. We're not a big franchise. We don't have a big team. We're mighty and we're focused, but we don't have a big team. That's why we're doing the crowdfunding, to expand our team. Plain and simple, right? There are franchise owner risks. If we get the wrong franchise owner in, especially the first 10 area developers, if they aren't coachable, if they aren't customer driven, if they aren't good to their staff, that's going to dramatically affect the risk of that location. Now, we've got checks and balances built into our agreements to force them to be good to their staff. But, let's be blunt, if they're an a-hole personality and they treat people like an a-hole, ain't nothing we can do. That business will not thrive. Right. Hopefully it will survive well enough to get them to sell and get out of there. But if we blow it on that side, that's why we have a very detailed screening process. That's why when people ask how many you got so far, I say none yet. People think that's a problem. I'm like, no, I want to make sure they're perfect when they come in. Like they're going to be a win-win, not like a win-lose. So that's part of the risk proposition. We're doing master franchises. We get the wrong master franchise in place, same risk as I described earlier. Yep. And then competition. I alluded to this before, but there are direct competition on the franchising side, but there's also indirect competition.
Right.
You're not going to go to a Top Golf the same day you go to a Lynx Golf Cafe. That's indirect competition. Frankly, we're also in direct competition to Dave & Buster's or a Chuck E. Cheese or a bowling alley with, flame-colored virtual reality golf balls or whatever they're doing now in these bowling alleys, right? With blue lights and all this crazy stuff, right? Indoor putting ranges with, holographic images now. There's all kinds of cool entertainment venues, right, that are competitive in nature. And so while it's part of the attraction to our model, the money's not made there. The money's made off the memberships, it's made off the masterminds, and it's made off of the coffee/Lynx sausages. So that's an important part of our model too.
Right. And we've talked a lot about all the aspects on lynxgolfcafe.com, which outlines all of this. And I encourage anybody to go and check out that website. In fact, we're going to talk in a second about how to prioritize because there's so much there. You kind of want to point them to individual spots, and we'll link to those in the show notes. But to put a bow on this whole conversation, you also mentioned that you have pretty hard and clear ideas of how and when to exit.
Yes.
So we put our investors' hats on for now. What kind of plan do you have, the goals you're going to have for opening franchises and how and when you might exit?
I'm kind of embarrassed to say this. This is my 93rd business. It's my first built to sell. Okay.
Right. And that's a very refreshingly blunt thing to say, because most people are like, we don't want to, but if the right opportunity came along.
Yeah. And for me, it was always build to keep forever, like naively. Right. And that's not the real world of entrepreneurship. And I get that. But this one was done from the beginning to build, scale, and sell. The plan in order to do that is to open up 100 locations in 3 to 5 years. Now, that sounds pretty aggressive when you've got 0 at this point in time as we record this call. But here's the thing. I built 187 coffee bars in about 5 years with 170 different decision makers in 170 different markets with 170 different permit planning processes to get approved and built and financed. So it's not even aggressive for me to do 100 in 3 to 5 years, Doug. I know we can accomplish that. That's why we can afford to be picky. And it won't be 100 different people. It will be 20 to 30 area developers that will open up 3, 4, 5, 6 each over that
Right.
period of time. That's our model. So that's the plan to grow the brand. And then the plan is to sell to a franchise amalgamator, one of the good guys. There are several
That's a
in the
key point.
space.
I wanted to ask about that because
Yeah.
you're going to build a very specific relationship with your franchisees as Lynx Golf Cafe. And as we know, there are people out there who don't have that same level of empathy, consideration for their franchise.
I call it
How do you make
ethics. I call it
so how
ethics.
do
Like they don't
you
have the same commitment. So two things about that. Number one, we're building it into our agreement, and all renewals, all of these unique terms and conditions. Most franchise agreements, even really good ethical ones, say on renewal, you'll sign the then current form of the franchise agreement. And most franchise attorneys accept that as totally fair, the then current form. But that's where they get you, people. That's where they get you. Right. And if you're Dairy Queen and Warren Buffett buys Dairy Queen and says, I'm going to fix Dairy Queen, it's a mess. And it was. And they fix it and make it amazing. And they did. And it went from 2.5% royalties to 9.5% royalties on renewal, Doug.
Wow.
You're freaking out as an existing franchisee because Dairy Queen's had about 15% profit on gross, which meant about 80% of your profit disappeared when you renewed your contract. Brutal.
That, I'm sure, is a really salient concern among franchisees.
And that's with a good guy and a good example. And Warren Buffett saving Dairy Queen, resurrecting it. Along comes all of these great products, the Treats of Pizza and the Blizzard and all that was invented. In other words, they weren't even dishonorable people. These were honorable people. And that happened. It's even worse with the dishonorable crowd in franchising.
Market forces and terrible people is a bad recipe. Yeah.
It's got to be in writing. It's got to be there for renewals. We do that, number one. Number two, we tell everyone this is our plan, and we tell everyone who we're going to sell to. And our first 10 area developers also get equity in the head office.
Oh, okay.
That's on purpose. We match them dollar for dollar on their franchise fees with equity in the head office. Why? Because the first 10 are going to determine whether we get to the 100. And if the first 10 crush, we'll get to the 100 fast. And if the first 10 suck wind, it'll take a long time to get there. I don't want to take a long time to get there. I want to do it fairly quickly. I want to do it right, but I want to do it fairly quickly. And so they'll be part of the decision to sell who we're going to sell to. And they're going to be part of the wise elders. We're already building it in. We don't even know their ages, but we're calling them wise elders in our model to make sure we exit to the prop. And by the way, the team will still be there. The support people, the people they're dealing with every day will still be there because that gets a better multiple for us when we sell.
Right.
So we're going to be recruiting people that will be there for hopefully ever. I mean, that's the plan at our headquarters, at our team headquarters.
So when you go to when you go to lynxgolfcafe.com, where's the first place? Apart, obviously, you'll get to the front page there, but what are the best resources for investors, for potential investors, for franchisees? What pages have the most meat that you want to send people to first?
Yeah, right at the top, you will see a video that's about 7-8 minutes long.
There are a bunch of videos on there, by the way. Because
this is the one
at out by now. Mr. Matzen is a born performer.
This is the main one at the main homepage, and it's the first one. Let's put it that way. It's the first one. So I would watch that, and then the two links on the left that says what makes us unique and what are the primary revenue streams. That will get you a real good idea. Now, if you're looking to invest, we have a different page. It's linked off of this page, and you'll see a link on the left that'll get you there, but it's learn.lynxgolfcafe.com. And that's for investors, for people looking at the crowdfunding, for people looking at doing bigger investments. That's the way to get the details on that. So that's what I would do in terms of the starting process to do that. And yeah, there's a ton of information. Our franchise prospects, if they go through the first stage of screening and we talk to them and they're a good fit, we then send them even more information on a hidden website that goes into way more detail, including our exact site selection process, our lease negotiation details, our operating costs, templated performas, a whole bunch of details that normally you never, ever see until you bought a franchise. We want people to make an informed decision, good, bad, and ugly. And so we disclose a lot more as a personal philosophy, really.
And the details for vetting potential franchisees, where are they?
On that first page, you will see at the very bottom, of the menu, and at the very bottom of the site, book a call to learn more. That's
the
how
best
they do
point.
it.
And I think that's one of the salient aspects of this whole deal is that you evaluate people to work with, and so much
And
of
it's
the
me.
success
It's me.
guarantee it.
Every one of those calls, it's me.
This has been a great conversation, Tom. I really appreciate it. The link is linksgolfcafe.com. Start there. All the information is there. There'll be more information as well about how to contact Tom for future considerations. And you're going to get him because he is a very hands-on owner. That has been founder and CEO Tom Matzen. I have been Doug French, your host. Tom, thank you so much for the conversation, and I wish you all the best of luck with this.